everyone. Welcome back to another Templar on the Run. This is Brother Bryce Baker here with
Brother Wayne Ross from Meridian 47 here, Meridian, Idaho. Just jumping into our second, maybe full day of fall, rather brisk this morning here. A lot of changes already occurring out there, which is pretty nice. We have a very special episode today. Get into some stuff that we haven't had an opportunity to get into with some gentlemen who have some knowledge, I would say, and are, whether they say they are or not, a couple of pillars, I would say, in Idaho Masonry.
Yeah, for sure. Brothers, you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Robert Mahar. I also go to Meridian 47. I'm a past master over there, and since we're talking about Scottish Rite Masonry, I'm in the Scottish Rite, Boise Valley.
All right.
Yeah, Chad Brown here. I'm the odd man out. Boise #2 is my Blue Lodge past master there, and also a Scottish Rite Mason.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And, let's get into it here. So we're all Scottish Rite here, but you two are very distinct in that you're 33rd degree Scottish Rite Masons. And you just came from putting that degree on. Is there anything you can kind of share or tell us about that a little
No.
bit? No? All right.
It happened.
Just that we made some 33rd degree Masons this morning.
There you go.
We did indeed, and it was actually it's a special ceremony and it's a special time.
Yeah.
And like all honors weekends, it's and we do almost consider it a weekend because the effort that goes into it pre and post, the dinners throughout the day. So it's the 33rd degree in the morning, the KCCH in about the afternoon, and then in the evening are other bodies at other places that do other types of honors as well, that expands across the fraternal family. And so, having the honors on this weekend, it's just really nice to kind of bounce out of bed first thing in the morning, head on in and put the degree on. It was my first time at one of the chairs, the Grand Commander part, which is the head of basically the I don't know. I felt like, there's a lot of different ways to put this, but it's kind of the main part.
Okay.
It certainly is.
And I am stepping in after a brother of ours who has done this for many, many years. He decided that he had had enough. It was time for him to retire and hand it off to somebody younger. I don't know how much younger I really am.
Say anything, yeah.
But being able to see the types of individuals and actually the age of the individuals, those of us who are participating in those degrees and taking the Boise Valley Scottish Rite forward, it's a real special experience. It's an incredible time to just spend with these brothers.
And it's a humbling experience, too, to be able to be part of the cast for these degrees, for this degree. And the quality of the gentlemen and brothers that are part of that degree is amazing. So,
Well, and you mentioned a term that we're familiar with, but with our audience, we never know who's listening from where, whatever. So you say KCCH, and we have the three different hats, particularly up from 32nd to 33rd there. So what is KCCH?
So, and let me give you a little bit of perspective on why I would speak a little bit more to this, is because I also am the classroom leader on our reunions. And so every reunion we go through, I go through this same spiel as to what the different hats are. The black hat represents the 32nd degree. And it goes, of course, through the 4th through the 32 degrees. That is a Knight Kadosh. The red cap is the KCCH, the Knight Commander Court of Honor. It is awarded It is awarded to those who have put in particular service to the Valley, to the community, to Freemasonry in general. It is an honorary. It's not considered a degree. It is just simply considered an honorary ranking. And in order to get that, generally speaking, you have to have been a Scottish Rite Mason for at least 5 years. And then in addition to that, 5 years after that is the general rule. The 33rd degree, honorary 33rd degree, is the white cap. And you can be elected to that degree. It is an honorary, it is not an active member of the Supreme Council, but we are honorary members and well, frankly, members of that Supreme Council at that level. So one of the key things within our valley, and I know that it spreads into other Orients as well, and I've heard this, generally speaking, getting the red cap and the white cap respectively, one of the things that we hold pretty tight to is you can't ask for it. There are a lot of, throughout the classroom, there are a lot of questions of, well, how do I get that? How do I go there? And the real answer is you simply serve. You put the time in, you get involved in the degree work, you're an attendee, volunteer for some of the reunion items, whether it's putting together the floor, setting up for any of the degrees there, and or participation within the degrees as a director or a participant there. Those are all of the things that qualify to be able to receive one of those.
Okay. And so, Brother Rob, you said it was humbling. So could you elaborate a little bit more on that? What does it mean to you to be a 33rd and then to also be able to invest others with that?
Well, it's funny because, a lot of the brothers that get the 33rd degree, they're surprised that they were got the phone call to take the 33rd degree in many cases. And I would say that myself and many of the others that participate in the degree or even received it, we put in our work, with love for the fraternity and love for the Scottish Rite. And to be able to see these gentlemen that I respect, many of them, receive it, and to be able to participate in them receiving the 33rd degree is very humbling to me, because these are people sometimes that I look up to myself. And it's I don't want to go into what what we do during the degree or any of that, but it's just inspiring for me and humbling in the way that that I get to be part of that. And I don't know how better to explain it other than just that some of the peers that I have looked up to over the years, I actually get to help elevate them to that degree in the Scottish Rite, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the first time I got to confer a third degree. It's just like, it's something special. Obviously I haven't gotten to that level yet with that, but I imagine it's a pretty similar feeling.
Same feeling, let's go to Blue Lodge. When I was master of the lodge and I got to raise people that worked really, really hard to get their degrees, first, second, and third. To be able to do that was a humbling experience as well, because I feel like we're setting them on a path toward, because the Scottish Rite doesn't really teach you what to learn, it just teaches you how to learn. It teaches you how to use your logic to understand the nature of the world, of mankind, the tyranny, the oppression, the way that we can look out for each other and care for each other as brothers. And even in the first 3 degrees are the true degrees of the Blue Lodge. to be able to set someone on a path and then watch them through the years, progress and grow spiritually and as a brother, it's humbling to me when I look back at the Blue Lodge, at the brothers that have continued to grow and actually became leaders within the fraternity. So I guess that's what I mean by all that.
Well, and I think it's an important distinction to make too, because you're right, Scottish Rite doesn't teach you through the lessons. You've got all this stuff, you've got the materials, the Bridge to Light. Love this cover.
That's an oldie.
Yeah, that's an old but good one.
And then our Morals and Dogma, unabridged, so there's no cheat sheet, just to get into that stuff. But you can, pick and choose. You can go into a certain one and at depth, right? Really, really break it down, get that overview, get that gloss, and then jump in there and then maybe work back and forth. And, I would suggest almost like our friend, the Reverend, on the last episode, Morals and Dogma, don't try to read it from page 1 to page end at the back. That's what he was talking about with the Bible. It's almost a daunting kind of a thing, but I think the Scottish Rite allows us to do that. We can sort of pop in first and see these ones we are enamored with, that we have a special affection for, because there is such diversity in there, and we've spoken of this a little bit. We had a brother from back east and northern jurisdiction in there, and he was talking about some of the differences, and we were able to ping pong on some of that kind of stuff, and I think everybody at the table would agree to that, and that ability to be able to go with where your heart sort of pulls you. And how often is the ceremony performed?
Every 2 years.
So that's like a little refresher then for you. Maybe like jumper cables at times. I mean, because we're going to get into something at the end here, sort of, we talked about the other night, but it seems like, it's almost like you've got that time and you're away, and then you get to start prepping again, and you're getting game ready and, sharpening your cleats and whatever. And, do you feel like that? Like it's a little refresher of...
It's a refresher to participate and to observe it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is, yes, it's every 2 years, and my part isn't as large as some of the other guys there, but shaking off the cobwebs is very familiar to even the reunions, as we do those twice a year.
Right.
So when as a refresher, every time I observe, even when I'm participating, excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold here, and listening to the other brothers speak their parts, I learn something new every time. It's not like, once you've seen it, you understand all of it. There's a lot of truths that are shared in the 33rd and all the degrees leading up to the 32nd degree. Think about it like when, even in Blue Lodge, I'm going to keep referring to that, but, every time you go to a 3rd degree, 2nd degree, 1st degree, whether you're a master that's raised, 20 Masons or not, or even halfway through your recitation of the dialogue or the script, things will pop into your head like, wow, I didn't think of it that way, so. I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking, but as far as refreshers, there's always something new to learn within the degrees.
Half the time I don't even remember what I'm asking. So, but as the classroom, you've got a different perspective, but it almost lines into that too. So twice a year you're doing the classroom.
So, yes,
as well.
but I wanted to lean into it a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of, and we did speak about this the other night as well. And even though today was the peak of the preparation and the delivery and the emotions that were involved in, there's another aspect of this that is the camaraderie among the brothers. You learn to appreciate the practices. You have a lot of fun coming together, and you get to see the same faces, interact with those people, and I feel like it's any excuse that we can make for ourselves to get together as a group, to sit in a room. It's one of the reasons I love the classroom so much at the reunions, both fall and the spring reunions, where I'm sitting in the classroom for 2 days, enjoying just devoting that entire weekend to the work. but not the work per se, but to the work of building more relationships, building that camaraderie, those faces that come through that you eventually grow to really appreciate and love over time. And for me, it's just kind of interesting. There was earlier, we had a practice this week. Afterwards, a few of us went out and just sat, had a few drinks, and just chit-chatted about, actually they chit-chatted, I just listened, how many year over year, what has changed, who has changed, how many of the brothers have lived and passed on that were Robert and I are fortunate enough to fill in and attempt to fill in for those large shoes. So I think that camaraderie is us coming together constantly, just to keep that up. That's one of the very real aspects of it. Of course, there's the mystery, there's the learning, there's all of that. But what you really take away, or what I personally take away every single time, is just, it's good to see those faces.
And you miss the ones that pass.
Yes, you really do, and it's noticed.
And there's like a real strong desire to, make sure that we keep this going, as in a time of, well, here we go, digital, everything's digital, everything's online. I can think of a few brothers that have passed in the last several years that were super close to me, and I really missed seeing them there with us. And my hope is, and back to the humbling side of it, is that perhaps I will leave that kind of impression on some of these other newcomers or people that are aspiring through the degrees, that maybe I left a little kernel of something of thought that drove them to want to aspire further as well within the Scottish Rite and the Masons.
And Brother Bryce, I mean, you can speak to this, being the newest of the 30 seconds here between you and I on that side of it. What was your feel when you were going through that weekend?
It was only a few months after I became a Master Mason, so I'm very happy that it all kind of came so quickly, because the Master Mason degree kind of opened a whole new door to me that I hadn't even known was there. And then I had a couple months to kind of absorb that and learn a bit more. And then I went through the Scottish Rite, and it just made sense, because it's oh my gosh, this is just such an expansion of this little door that was open to me through the third degree. And now there's all this other stuff that's everything's just kind of clicking and making sense, especially, a couple of degrees, like the 25th degree. It's one of my favorites. And again, it's just a bunch of these doors open that I didn't know were there. And I'm very grateful to have found them. And it's from Blue Lodge to Scottish Rite that really did that.
And I think Brother Bryce's was the first one. When we put the 25th together, I think his was the very first time, because you were one of the first actors in that. And I think that was the very first one that we threw together, and everybody gets a good feel from that one, and it's pretty cool.
It's a fun degree.
Yeah.
Although I'll never forget Brother Todd's shaking of his hips.
Yes.
32nd
Well,
degree.
He learns from the best. But he is a little bit more stout of an individual than, Fast Master Chad here. So when maybe he can wiggle his hips sometime, and we'll put it on for everybody.
There we go.
Yeah. It's like back tattoos. We want donations. Before Brother Anthony shows his back tattoo, we gotta, get some stuff going online there. So
Nice.
Another sort of a corollary to it. In my time, I was looking at my certificate the other day. So 10 years. This November coming up, 10 years, and it sort of interacted for me at a time. I had been here in Idaho for a while, but not active in the lodges due to various things. I did all three of my degrees in California, and then just a lot of medical issues and things that we had going on in the household that kept me out. And then I was fortunate enough to meet up with Boise too, where I went through the ranks. But at the same time is when I stumbled, as I was just getting reacquainted into Masonry and getting the feel of a good Blue Lodge, is when the Scottish Rite opportunity came up, and that just set me on fire also into everything, because everything was sort of coalescing at the same time. I did the 9-year journey in Boise too, from the junior steward all the way up and through, and then you and I were the same year one of the 4 masters at Scottish Rite, and it was all just coalescing at the same time, which was really cool. Just all of that feel and that just desire to learn more, and then the key is then what are you doing with it, right? And you two are doing something with it in that tangible sense, pulling those brothers forward. And a lot of what Bryce and I were talking about last year was to do something like this in this platform, so that again people can understand, right, who we are, what we do, and now with the video, what we look like, in all of our different looks and aspects. And it's just important to us to pull back as much of the whatever people want to say about
the
us.
layers of the onion.
Yeah, exactly. And who we are and what we do, and those different types of things. And that's where the truth comes out. We talked about truth a lot the other night too, but that's the truth of it, right? You guys you're giving that truth. You're giving that time, service, charity, right, of that time that you are spending. And I get the sense, I don't know about you, Brother Bryce, but I get the sense that they're not having their hands out waiting for, payment back, which is the best thing. Right?
Well, one of the best things about being a 33rd degree is you get the free gas card that comes with it. So
that sucks, then, man. I'm paying too much for gas.
Yeah, and the cigar and wine club.
Yeah,
That's great too.
That's good for you.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Just plebeians over here.
That's why I don't care that the gas prices are going up. It's no big deal.
Right.
Okay, just roll around,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just the Masonry in general is just, for me, it's just been like the perfect spiritual. It's not a religion, but there's so much to learn. When I was running that, I'm not running the class at the reunions, but I was running a class for quite some time. Reviewing the degrees that we went through. We would reread it. We'd go into the library at the Boise Valley Scottish Rite building, and we would read through the degrees, and the ones that were communicated, we'd read the script through it and discuss it, sometimes with bourbon, sometimes without. But, the camaraderie he's talking about is there. There's different opinions. The first 30 degrees specifically, there's not a lot of discussion about what we're learning.
Right.
And that the opportunity for us to sit around and talk about it, you get to see other people's perspectives on those types of things. And it makes it all worth it.
I think that's what I've loved about Scottish Rite the most, is that learning, because like you were saying, like the 3rd degree kind of teaches you how to learn almost, right? And then the Scottish Rite just takes that and runs with it,
I feel like the Scottish Rite also offers a broader or a larger breadth of individuals globally that you can tap into. And maybe making the comparison isn't really fair. Lodge is lodge. It's kind of a local thing. But once you become and you start to engage in a journey within the Scottish Rite, knowing that the headquarters are in a remote location, Washington, D.C., away from Boise, Idaho, and then learning that the other valleys come in from Oregon, from Utah, from Washington and California, and participate in our reunions, in our degrees. They bring with them additional information which we can take in as learning. And then even broader than that, we get involved. Brother Rob and I were fortunate very early on in our Scottish Rite careers to have been asked to participate in the Fellows Program, where we were able to go to San Diego and sit with Masons from every state, Scottish Rite, young Scottish Rite Masons from every state this side of the Mississippi, and meet celebrities and spend really good time discussing what it was we as young Masons, new 32nd degree Masons, were looking for, and have that input shape the future and the direction of the Scottish Rite. We were listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And within that also, we were also presented with this huge, it's like opening up this big book and access to all of these different people, these different ideas, watching how others do it. You're just given a broader breadth of license to study.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I've really appreciated about it.
Yeah, that's kind of what you were talking about at your education night the other day.
Right.
And that's what I like about it too. It's so I think I said it there too. It's like I've never been so excited to learn and just keep learning all these different things and philosophies that the Scottish Rite kind of helps me have access to, even though I probably could have learned, picked up a book and read that, not anywhere, but it helped me find the right direction.
It also teaches you, for example, we were talking about the Morals and Dogma Unabridged. It was actually there at that fellows conference where I don't remember who suggested it, but they suggested to read it backwards. Start at the back of the book and take it paragraph by paragraph and work forward. I actually attempted it.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you get a fairly different perspective.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not like the 70s where you take the Led Zeppelin album
Play it in reverse.
Yeah, play it in reverse. It's nothing like that. Close though. But but it's what it does is this is not a story that starts at the beginning and finishes at an end. It is a book of concepts that can be taken precept by precept, which is paragraph by paragraph. And so it doesn't matter what the order is. And it's just kind of one of those strange things where you start learning that way.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of what you two have been saying, and Brother Bryce too, there's a passage in here, Brother Bryce brought me onto this little pamphlet that he's been going through and strenuously marking through it, but Foundations Unearthed by Maria Bower Hall, the widow of Manly P. Hall. And there was a line in here that was really, really cool, taken from some of Bacon's works, talking about principles of truth or sublime heritage of humanity. They were taught by guardians of an immature race, now come of age and capable of rational comprehension, capable of reading the spirit beneath the letter, of understanding the natural law which gave birth to the allegory, so that a union of science, religion, and philosophy on a higher level of thinking may be effected. And that, to me, wraps up my perspective on the Scottish Rite. And I'm not York Rite, and I assume they might touch into that, but I don't see any other institution getting that interplay, because you do have that within the Scottish Rite. You have acceptance of other faiths, other religions, other ideas. It's not so just it's this way and that's it. So when I was reading that the other day, going through this, because we're going to find the lost manuscripts of the unknown author, not Shakespeare, because it's giving us all the clues. So we're working hard. We got to get to Virginia. Like I said last time, we got to get to Virginia. So another topic that came up the other night, and it sort of rolls into this whole thing too, that of the fraternity and the bonding, and something that was seemed very precious to you. So the ceremony, obviously the 33rd ceremony for both of you guys, but then we were talking about the Masonic funeral and Masonic rites. And could you sort of recap a little bit of what you had said about that in general?
Yeah. I think starting out with why it becomes important, and why the funeral services make such a poignant impact on our lives, I suppose, as Masons, because some of us, we join relatively younger ages, and those who are in lodge, those who are guiding us, are elderly more often than not. And the lodge is one of those places where you get to interact with that age group, and you probably wouldn't interact with that age group in any other situation. Probably not at work, probably not in, I could see maybe if maybe a church or something like that would have a similar type of mentorship, but you become close. You become, you essentially begin to love these individuals whom you've grown close to. And that's the bittersweet part of it, is you get very, very close to these individuals, these brothers, people that we can rely and talk to, and only to, within a few short years, in many cases, you're standing there at the foot of their coffin or beside their coffin with some evergreen in your pocket, doing the Masonic service for them. It's hard. It's hard, and it's a wonderful service at the same time. It's that bittersweet that you have gained and you continue to gain. I assume they've gained through the relationship, but it just becomes that point, I suppose. And I think that's why we take that service, and it becomes such a special thing to us, because it's through that, and it's through watching that, and it's through the words of that ceremony that we can put our brothers to rest. There was, I think it was the third time that I was master in our lodge, was kind of one of those times, is we had 7 Masonic funerals during that year that I personally participated in, and some of those were so strong of individuals that none of us could barely stand to get through it. It was very, very difficult time. And those are the moments, though. Those are the moments when, as you're trying to finish the dialogue without your voice dropping, as you're trying to walk away as you've finished up the process, and you find yourself weak, you just rely on the brother in front of you, behind you. You rely on the brethren with the aprons and the seats, and then afterwards, it's always nice to go out and talk a little bit and celebrate a little bit of these lives, and talk about the things that we've all learned and the good times that we had. There is the camaraderie. There is that bonding that I often talk about. And I would almost say that Masonic funerals in general are, again, it's this comparative thing that isn't really fair, but there are a lot of things that we do along the way that creates these bonds. The Masonic funeral is one of those, where we get to rely on each other's strength to help us through the difficult times. And that creates an additional bond, that camaraderie, that brotherhood.
Brother Rob?
Ditto.
He's like, I ain't following that.
I can't follow that.
What I like to add on to that too is we have only so many things for public eyes, but the funeral is not for public eyes, it's for the family's eyes. So we invite as many people as possible to our installation of officers so that they can see what we do as a public. They can get a little gist of what's going on, so on and so forth. But that funeral, it's for that family who may have no idea what their loved one was a part of, to actually get to see these guys walking, talking, doing this thing, and then they can sort of reflect for themselves. They'd be like, wow, okay, that's a little bit of what he was talking about all this time, right? They may have an inkling or things like that, but they've never seen anything in particular, and yeah, it's one of those things, like we mentioned the other night. Having a solid group who studies and practice and could go and do that, it would be an ultimate goal, I think, for this area, whatever district, I don't care, but just to have a group that can do that, so that it is that proper send off for the family, The brothers doing it are honoring that brother, but really honoring that family and letting them get a glimpse at it as well. I mean, Brother Bryce, was that your first Masonic funeral for Brother Bob Hibbs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to see somebody who was like not only beloved in Masonry, but what his impact and his wife's impact was in the Boise area. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank up there by the penitentiary. What's that place called with all the flowers where they do the outdoor concerts?
The Botanical Garden?
Botanical Gardens. Yeah, they were huge contributors in that realm. And how long had you been a Mason before you went to that? Because that was
fairly short after I became a Master Mason as well.
Yeah.
And we were kind of talking about it the other night. It kind of brought, I don't want to say everything full circle, but it really showed me those kinds of bonds of brotherhood, because I don't think I've ever met him actually, but it was something I wanted to be there for, because I knew it was going to be something special, and it definitely was. And then also I went out with you guys afterwards, and we had that celebration, and it was special to just be a part of that, because I felt like I hadn't known him, but he was a brother, and just kind of celebrating that brother and brotherhood, and then hearing you guys talk about him, it was a very good experience for me right after becoming a Master Mason, because again, it's like, okay, this is what this is all about, and it just put that in my mind and in my heart, really. So
it makes me think of a couple of things, like the solidarity of the brotherhood. It's not just about the second Tuesday of the month when someone passes and half of the church is filled with Masons. Those are guys that respected him, or those are guys that really cared for that person. And it's really hard. You said most of your audience may not be Masons. I don't think they can really appreciate the bonds that we make, that carry us all the way to the grave, I guess. And as far as what you were talking about, giving them kind of a view of what we're all about. When my grandfather was a Mason, things have become a lot more transparent since he was a Mason. It was a lot more secretive. He never really talked about it. He would just put on his black suit, go out to the lodge, and nobody really knew what was going on. But I believe I wasn't at his funeral, I don't believe, but I'm thinking that they probably gave him a similar ceremony. At that time, when Masonry was a lot more secretive, it did give them a good view of what Masonry was all about. So I recommend, hey guys, if someone you know is a Mason that passes, go check it out, or just come to the lodge and talk to us.
Yeah,
good way to start.
That's a little bit more uplifting of a entrance. Just come to the lodge.
Come to the lodge.
Yeah.
A little less creepy too.
Well,
I don't know.
perspective. Yeah, there's some pretty creepy guys in the past. I don't know. We'll see. But I know it's true, and I think about it too, and I think back to Brother Bob. He was my Tyler when I was Master of Boise, and you would have dug having conversations with him.
Yeah.
Just tooting along, just get there. Yeah. So it's great. And that sort of goes into the cyclical nature. Like you said, you guys are now taking the place of some of those others. And, when I came in, there were all those local Boise roots, I want to say, the Jerry Parsons, the Ken Verdon, the Harry Black, the Ron Scotts, and all those kind of guys, and Brother Bob Hibbs, and those different people who now they're not there, right? And you've had your interactions with him, and you've had yours, and I've had mine, and he hasn't. So he's building his through us, right? And he's getting those secondhand stories that are still going to resonate in that aspect, but each of us then has it on another level. And then I think we're setting out, as hard as it may be at times, as we get frustrated with whatever else is going on, but it's almost incumbent on us to keep moving those good times forward, those good messages, because nobody ever said that every Mason has to like the company of every other brother in their lodge. That's not the whole thing, right? When we're in lodge, we're on the level, right? What happens outside of the lodge, that may be a different story. But, you know, those guys that taught us those lessons, it's, you know, very incumbent on us to make sure that we're pushing that forward, you know, and they get to see that, and they see it through us. I think, you know, we set those examples, and sometimes not consciously at all.
I'd say most of the time not consciously, because you know, if you're a true Mason, you're not driven by fame or glory or anything like that, or, you know, I want everyone to remember me as much as I'm really getting a lot out of this, and I can't wait to share this with the other guys, especially the new guys. What do you guys think? And then, so in that way, you're kind of creating your own little cornerstone for the building of their future Masonry, I guess you could say, as an allegory.
No, it's true. And one of the final bigs that we were talking about, because this could be an extensive portion here, so you know, and this is what we like to do. We just like to play in these circular manners as we're talking and stuff. Another brother of ours who was there on Thursday, who couldn't be here today, a very I guess we would describe Brother Schuyler as very, well, he likes to talk a lot.
He does.
He does.
Yeah, and because he's here, we can talk about him.
That-
Because he's not here,
yeah.
we can talk about him.
And then he can watch this, and
I think it'd be great. Yeah.
but he's had an enduring question, because he's a devout follower of many podcasts, and he's like, well, if you guys are going to do this, put on my best Schuyler, you got to make sure that, you know, you're getting to the root of stuff. You know, you're getting down there and you're doing this, and, you know, and I'm sick and tired of everybody asking, why are you a Mason? Why did you become a Mason? Why did you become a Mason? Oh, my grandfather, you know, did Schuyler multiple times. So this is for Schuyler. This is his question, and his question to both of you. And I finally, after talking to Schuyler the other night, have my answer to that question. So that question is, after the amount of time that you've both put in service, besides what you've already said, so you can't go back and you can't say ditto.
Okay.
Go before he does, maybe. Why are you still a Mason?
I think I covered a lot of that in the beginning. Just I've always been really interested in the esoteric and the meaning of things, and I haven't necessarily, you know, when I think of the grand architect of the universe, I haven't necessarily fallen into any particular specific, you know, religion per se that would answer those riddles and things for me. I like to dive into things and study and read from, you know, from other folks, you know, what their beliefs are, and what the symbols within Masonry means. That's what kind of keeps me here, is because I've found a spiritual compass within Masonry that I haven't found anywhere else. And that's what keeps me here. Yes, my grandfather was a Mason. That's how I got in. I called him up, and I called up the Scottish Rite, and I'm like, hey, I got the certificate. I want to be a Mason. How do I do it? You got to go through Blue Lodge. Anyways, so Schuyler, there you go. But what keeps me a Mason is just, you know, there's so much to learn. Like I said in the beginning, every time I see a degree, every time I perform a degree, every time I raise a Master Mason, every time I sit in a lodge and watch somebody else do a degree, I pick up on these things. I take these little nuggets and I grab the book, you know, The Bridge to Light, or I grab the Morals and Dogma, or Manly P. Hall. I'll pick up on something within the degree that causes me to want to read. So I find a lot of, I'm not going to say answers, but more questions, because I like to go down the rabbit hole. So Masonry I would have left a long time ago if I didn't have that. It keeps me wanting to learn as I get older. You're never too old to learn new things, and Freemasonry has been a really great place for all of that. Plus the friendships that I've gotten out of it. I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
It's your answer. It's a great answer then. So
There you go.
Brother Chad.
Is it to me?
Yes, it's to you.
Skylar asked this question the other night, and I struggled with it a little bit. Not because, okay, well, geez, I'm angry or this or that. We focus a lot on microcosms and small things that are happening within the lodge that may make us feel like we are either not welcome there, or whether if the lodge is heading in a different direction then you feel like your life is going, or any one of those things, these little microcosms that cause you to not want to go in, and those are things that will probably propel someone to not want to continue that relationship or not want to continue the membership within a lodge if they're focused continually on these little things that are going to happen with any human connection. It doesn't matter where you are, we're human, we have our differences. And so the other night as we were talking, Skylar was talking about stories and how stories are there for us to pass on, and it's history. It's what we've done forever, sitting around the campfire and grunting and pointing and drawing with sticks in the dirt. We tell a story and we create a bond. And so why do I stay? I've heard a lot of these stories, and I have a lot of these mentors with their stories. Was Bob Vaughn still alive when you joined Boise number 2?
No, I don't believe so.
So Brother Robert Vaughn, past Grand Master of Idaho. He was past master of Boise number 2. And when I came in, he was an individual that stories surrounded him, all around him. And the stories, in many cases, seemed almost too wild to be factual. And that was the beauty of it. And we gained an almost legend-like appreciation for this individual. He was, in many ways, my mentor, because in the Scottish Rite, he was in the classroom. I took his place in the classroom. He was also the installing master for the incoming electees and appointed officers of the Scottish Rite. I took his place after that. He was also the Grand Commander in the 33rd degree, and I have now taken his place in doing that. The pathway that he has helped me on, and the stories which propel, and the reasons that he did it are my reasons and are many other Masons' reasons. The stories, the bonds, the things that we learn from each other and hold dear to ourselves, that's what keeps me coming back. I've created real friendships here. I mean, I joined Masonry for very selfish reasons, the selfish reasons being myself. I didn't join to do something for anyone else other than myself. And even through one of the degrees, when we talk about charity, it's still, I focus because this is a very personal thing that I need. And the thing that I needed was a brotherhood, a group of individuals that I could look up to, that I could learn from, that I could be friends with under any conditions. And that was a difficult thing for me to find. And so when I did, and then when I started learning the stories of the individuals, the things that do bring bonds and friendships together, and then we start to emulate that and emulate each other. And I'm still here because I have a lot of brothers that are still here. And if I take a step back and look at the big picture rather than the microcosms of the little things that are happening inside of each one of the corners of the lodges, and look at the bigger picture of what I actually joined for, I'm very much gaining that and more, selfishly.
Yeah, when we were talking the other night about it, I never had any kind of specific answer. I was sort of leaning in the direction towards one, and so it actually became twofold response onto this. Was first is I'm a firm believer in leaving it better than you found it, and I feel that that's what I've accomplished in my own way here in Meridian. We have things in motion, and the brothers can take it and hopefully make it better themselves. Just continue to build and grow and be a strong independent lodge, right? We lay that out for Brother Bryce and Trevor and Anthony and all these guys to take the reins, right? That side of the work is done. The other one was from Skylar, because he told a story that I had completely forgotten about. But it wasn't so much of the thing that I did for him, in quotes. It was the after story, what he has been able to do since I gave him the power to basically control his Masonic destiny. It's the easiest way to put it. He's going through some stuff, and I gave him that power as master. I didn't, follow maybe the code or the book or whatever, because I could feel there was something else. There was something there. And then hearing what he has been able to do, traveling to other countries and, South America and all this other kind of stuff, and just the interactions that he's had with these brothers in Europe and stuff like that, and just going by the seat of his pants, he would not have been able to do that had I not been able to help him in the fashion that I did. And that's a super cool, rare opportunity, and you talk about all the petty little things back and forth and stuff like that, and some feel super huge in those different kind of aspects, but I went away from that conversation not reinvigorated. I still have issues, but just understanding that, I did something that then this guy was able to go and experience these things, right? And you could just see in his eyes how much he enjoyed, staying in the hostel. The stories he was telling us of these different experiences, and that's because he had Masonic connections with those people, and the stuff that he had to fight through. I mean, none of us are perfect, and I think that's what we're taught, right? There's a rough ashlar and there's a perfect ashlar, and just because you've become a certain level doesn't mean you're not going to digress, and so that was, to me, something that I had never taken the time to really internalize until he laid it out for me, which was awesome.
So when you bring up Skylar, sorry Skylar that we're talking about, this whole episode's about you, but that's kind of another reason worth staying too, is just that there's so many different people. Like how do I put it? If you're at work, right, you have people that are around you, you don't really get to know them. You get to know their professional side, and you can kind of emulate their professionalism, but you never really get to know these people. But within the lodge, you really do get to know people, people open up to you because they really care about you, and they know that you care about them. Like this morning before we did our degree, I was talking to some older folks, and they were talking about some challenges they're having with, their wives, brain tumors and things like that. And you really feel close to them, like family, and that's another reason to stay, because they need, I'm not there because they need me necessarily, but we all need someone that we can talk to, and there's definitely some value in these relationships that we are building within the Masonic Lodge, where you get to see all these different people. You get to see, like Skylar and his comedy show or whatever, and then you've got, like these lawyers that are having challenges, out in the community, police officers that are, I don't want to go through the whole list, but you really get to know, you really, really get to know people within Masonry. and it's transparent, at least within the body. That's another great thing about Masonry that, I don't know if this is an advertisement for Masonry, but as we're talking, that's another beautiful thing here. As we talk, we kind of remind ourselves of the things that we enjoy the most about it. And that's another thing, all the different personalities, all the different people that you've gotten to know, including Skylar. So there you go.
Well, Brother Bryce, you've got, we've got a little bit of time, I think, and you've got 2 of these 33rds here. You got to be chomping at something that they won't answer anyways, but I mean, I'll always ask, but.
I'll go kind of an easier question. What do you think is your favorite, or what Scottish Rite degree had the most impact on you, whether it was when you first went through it or as you kind of continue to review them? That's kind of
Scottish Rite?
Yeah.
I think the 14th degree for me is well, the 4th degree is definitely powerful as well, but the 14th degree, I really enjoy that one. But I can't go into the details on it.
It's all in print. I mean, you could say a general what it's about. So
yeah, or why, or what it taught you.
Yeah.
I think that it just teaches you to. For me, it just teaches you the importance of searching and longing for knowledge. The 14th degree, the part that I play in there, we talk about numbers, we talk about planets. We're not talking about astrology, we're talking astronomy. And it kind of teaches you to dig deeper into life. Maybe not into the degree itself, which there's plenty there to dig into. But I really enjoy that part of it. I don't know, I'm having a hard time going through the degrees because I don't want to say anything I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah.
But come check it out. Take your degrees through the 32nd degree and we'll talk. We'll have a class. We'll all talk about the degree.
There we go. Chad?
You're asking me the same question, but you already know the answer to this one. I was fascinated by the 25th degree. The first time I heard it, it was communicated in the classroom and discussed, and the classroom communication that we use today is different in that it's been rewritten. It's a little bit shorter. It doesn't dive as deep as, of course, Morals and Dogma does. And so when I went through the work that was presented, it just kind of started scratching my brain a little bit. I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand, because first read through, I had no idea. I just the little scratch of the brain. And so I looked into Morals and Dogma, and I found that particular area that I was having my brain scratched in was like the largest grouping of pages within Morals and Dogma. So look what I had jumped into. It was a spiritual journey, a journey of the soul. And many of us ask different questions of where we come from an origin perspective, the soul itself. Why are we here and existing within this existence? What are we learning? What are we getting out of it? And then, of course, the age-old question that regardless of where you're from or what organization you belong to is, where are you going? We all pass on. We've already talked about the funeral services. We've talked about the bonds, the brotherhood. I believe that in those pages, there can be, I'm not going to say answers or truths, because answers and truths are for each one of us on what we believe in. And the basis of whatever religion or background you have, that's what it's going to speak to you about. But the beauty in the way that this is written, I think it speaks to all, in that you can symbolically take that which might be translated as a soul, and as it gathers from planet to planet, which does include astrology, which does include some ancient philosophies of which each of the planets mean within the orbit, and then bringing the soul to live on Earth and to survive and to learn, but not only, but also to pick up some of the dirt, so to speak. We get some scars, some scrapes. We learn things that probably aren't the best things to keep in our mind, but as we pass on and we pass beyond, and the soul makes that journey back through the planets to the stars beyond, to the dust, so to speak, we offload those things. But our time here was spent, and how it was spent is really what the focus is. How do you make it so that what you've picked up gets to stay, the positive stuff, and gets transmitted and translated to others? And then after that, how do we cleanse ourselves from the world that we've survived through in a way that as we pass back to the dust whence we came is it's just a fascinating way to I suppose remind myself of how small I am in the grand scheme of things, that I am simply a tiny dot in a historical perspective, a tiny existence as a human, and all of the humans that have existed before me and all those who will exist after me. It's a reminder, I think, to take precious of what it is that I have with me, who I am, and who I choose to spend this time with.
And I would almost say, as you're going through and talking about that, and I'm looking at the books and I'm thinking about it too, it's like, in the episodes we always talk about, hey, what are some books, you can study, so on and so forth. And obviously for Masons, if you're going to go to the Scottish Rite, don't read the books before. But I think just somebody off the street, if they pick one of these up, which they can, use bookstores all the time, it even says not to be sold inside, and they're still sold, right?
It's a free country.
Yeah, it's a free country, yeah. And they're not going to get what you just said. There is no way. They're going to read it, and they're going to be like, well, this is, this part's tree hugging, whatever, they're going to be like completely confused as to what's going on. And that's because they lack the back, they lack the grounding, they lack the first, second, third degree, they lack that push all the way up, and then to go through the ceremonies and go through these pieces. It's like a continual argument about, because it is the electronic age and all this kind of stuff, and our ritual work and our coded work and stuff like that. And to me, it's the exact same thing. I go put this on the park bench, and nobody's going to get the secret. They're going to read it, and they'll probably put it back down for the most part,
Right.
So when it comes to that, Bridge to Light, Morals and Dogma, these other pieces, they are just so rich in knowledge. But, I don't worry at all that, somebody's going to, really delve into it from an outer, because it's just so beyond that level, I feel, unless you've gone through and done the proper steps.
Yeah, I feel like if I hadn't had the context of the third degree and like the immortality of the soul, I wouldn't be able to kind of understand the spiritual journey that then the Scottish Rite kind of takes and teaches, especially the 25th degree, like you were saying. Like after that, I kind of started looking into Islam a bit more, just in a completely different way than any other type of religion or religious study I'd done before. And I just have the Scottish Rite to thank for that. And ultimately, the third degree, of course, to help me have that context,
I'd really like to see a rewrite of the 25th that's enacted or acted here, because there is so much, like you said, it's like one of the biggest ones when you go into there, and the actual physical, the work that we do within the tent and all that kind of stuff, there's still so much that's left out. There is still so much that you couldn't really just, screw somebody's mind up a little bit more if you really wanted to. Tweak it within that realm and then tap into those things of astrology and all the other different, because it's deep in those areas there. And that's, why I love that degree, but it's, it could serve to almost have two parts to it. It feels like that it's got that there, or maybe not. Maybe we leave it to the brothers to determine and decide. Like, it inspired him to look into other areas. It continues me to inspire my education and where I'm going with all this kind of stuff here and the last couple of months and moving forward in that. So it's exactly that. I've never read, and I'm an English major and English teacher, but I've never read so many thoughts and ideas in one place. They're always separated out. You can find them here, and here, but never within one grouping of a book. And even in Bridge of Light, just that many scrapings of it, you still can pull that, which is totally awesome from a lit perspective, a philosophical, spiritual perspective, any way you want to think about it.
That's why you could read it backwards.
Yeah, maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, I'm still only like halfway through the 25th section, or the 25th degree in Morals and Dogma, because I'll find something and then, kind of like you're saying, I want to go read something else to help me better understand this specific part.
Right.
It can get messy because you can start catching yourself at the table with like 3 or 4 books opened up.
Yeah.
Well, and that's almost a question that's always been popping around in my head. So when you're in the classroom, do you guys get into, or do you sort of, play around with that idea of Pike himself and the time period that he's writing this in, and that he didn't have Google, to search up this stuff?
We don't. That's an area, and unfortunately, when a reunion is condensed into a weekend, it's very what's on the surface, what is written, what is designated by the Supreme Council focused.
Right.
We do get into some side conversations, but it's the repeated message that I give the class every single hour is, this is for you, to go study, to go look, to go find, to go explore with your brothers. I mean, go ahead, take the class, guys, go out, hang out somewhere and have these conversations and come up with it on your own. There are times when I would say, oh, I wish we could get into that into the classroom, but no, the classroom experience should be what is designated by the Supreme Council is what we need to communicate, as the degrees too. There is obviously leeway for these conversations, but I'm always going to tell the class, great question, go figure it out.
Go figure it out.
And there's so much more to learn after the class too. So, which is why we had the study group that would actually dive into specific degrees and look at them.
Yeah.
They also have those programs like the Master Craftsman program. If you like to learn on your own, you can do that.
Yeah.
I would say just take the degrees, do it, and then if it doesn't resonate with you, then it doesn't resonate with you. But be careful, because it might open a Pandora's box, and you may want to dive in and go as deep as you can into some of the degrees that really speak to you.
Yeah. And then as we wrap up, before we get to our plug of our socials there for Brother Bryce in just a second there, I just want to take a quick second to honestly say that I am so thankful to know all 3 of you in this aspect, because I've known both of you a lot longer than I've known him, but everything I see in him and the communications and where he's at in this process, he's going to be one of those ones. He's going to be one of those ones pulling that forward. I'm so grateful for all the different things that we've been able to do together and all the stuff that I'm now able to do with him. And then where he goes with this, it's going to be awesome to watch. So
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to watch this journey.
Thank you. I, Brother Wainier's the one who gave me the Bridge to Light kind of shortly before the reunion. Said, check it out, you might like it, and I'm very glad he did. It's been like I of course I love my 3rd degree. I love Blue Lodge, but without Scottish Rite, I don't think I would understand as much as I think I do about Masonry, or more about myself, because kind of like you were saying, it's opened up. Particularly Scottish Rite has opened up like a spiritual connection that I never had found before. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for you guys being a part of that journey as well.
I don't think we'd be doing this show if you weren't in that journey as well.
Yeah.
because just the conversations we've had with our Buddhist friend, with our pastor, our reverend, with, Shriners, and just all these different kind of open-ended conversations, it needs that mindset that you guys exhibit and that Bryce is pushing that forward with. So before we go on any longer, because I know we're pushing our time frame, Brother Bryce, you want to tell our listeners or viewers where they can find us?
Of course, we're on YouTube, Templar on the Run, Google Podcasts, on Spotify, Templar on the Run. You can find us on Reddit at Templar on the Run. Let's see, Instagram, we're at Temp on the Run. Twitter's also Templar on the Run, same with TikTok. Pretty much Templar on the Run. Just look for that. If you have any questions or anything and you're not a big social media person, go ahead and email us at templarontherun@gmail.com.
We've had 92 views of the Very Reverend. So that's awesome. 92 on our second episode on YouTube. Totally happy. So all those things that I don't understand, people, please do those things. Like, share, subscribe. I don't understand what they're doing it for, but heck, do it, and it's really good and it's really important. And that resonates too, that people are connecting with those episodes and these thought process. So totally awesome on our aspect. Once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this Saturday. And I know it's been a long haul for you since this morning, but we feel these are super important. So we hope you get that too.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming out, guys. This was great. I loved it. I always love chatting about Masonry, especially Scottish Rite stuff. So,
My pleasure.
Thanks for putting up with me.
no worries. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Templar on the Run, and we'll catch you next time. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to Templar on the Run. Please check us out at Twitter and Reddit at Templar on the Run. Our Instagram is at Temp on the Run. We got TikTok at Templar on the Run. And if you have any questions or anything else that you can't reach us on any of those other platforms, please send them to templarontherun@gmail.com. We thank you for listening and have a great day.